Hello, this is my first Hunkydory card from the products that I was sent a few weeks ago. Now my voice has almost fully recovered, I'm able to voice over this video. So I have chosen the top set Wonderful Wintertime Christmas on the Farm, and I'm going to use the sheet, one of the background sheets. So this one here, and I'm just going to take off those two sides with my woodware trimmer. And this just proves that you don't need to use that as a complete piece. So I'm just marking out the size of my card on the back so I can trim that down to the right size. And I'm picking my toppers, and after much deliberation and procrastination I finally decided on the layout of my card. So I'm using double-sided tape as well as some wet glue just to hold the backing sheet onto the base card. I could, if I wanted to, ink around the edges of that, but I've decided not to on this one. Now I'm using one of the borders from the set. Again, just with some double-sided tape and a bit of glue. I use both, one because I think it sticks better, and two, it gives me time to move it around. And I'm just trimming that off from the back so I know it's exactly the right size and goes to the end of my card. And I'm using one of the die-cut circles that comes with the designs on the top page, and I'm using pin flare glue just to give that a bit of height. And you can see it's got snowflakes around the edge, so I want to make sure that was at 12 o'clock so it was in a central position, because otherwise it might have looked slightly off balance. And again, more pin flare glue for the topper. I'm using the Just For You sentiment, and out comes the pin flare glue again. I'm just snipping off the pips from around the corner where it's die cut, and you get those slight pieces that are still stuck to it where it's been held into the card. Whilst I'm liking that, I do realise there's a slightly unbalanced look to it. So I take that other piece of the border that was snipped off earlier and just create a little flag end to it. Stick that down again with some double-sided tape. And there we go, finished. And what I'm going to do is use this kit to make as many cards as I can. On to my second card. I'm using another 7x7 base, and I'm using a scrap from the previous piece that I cut for the backing paper for the previous card. I'm also using a border from the topper set. Again, just double-sided tape and a bit of glue. Then I'm just deciding which way up to have those snowflakes. Always trimming the bits from the back so I know it's level. I've picked my toppers, but before I stick those down I'm going to use the nutcracker stencil from Hunkydory, which is called Nutcracker Kisses. I'm using masking tape from Wilkinson's. I always use this one now, and I just stick it to my clothes just the once to take off some of the tackiness and then put it down, and so far I've never had it rip a card or piece of paper. And I'm using the Faded Jeans Distress Oxide to stencil through. I'm obviously going to do that for the whole of the back of the card, but I'm not going to show you it all because that's very boring. I've just moved the stencil down slightly so I can make sure that the stenciling gets to the edge of the card. And in some areas I've gone heavier and some I've gone lighter, just to add a bit of contrast. So there you can see I finished the background, and I'm sticking on the sentiment with some pin flare, and that just says Season's Greetings. It's the same shape as my topper, and I'm going to add it slightly to one side of the card and then add my topper down the bottom to the other side, just to give it a bit of balance. Again, I'm using the pin flare to stick on the die cut oval. I'm just going round the edges of all the pieces with the faded jeans, and instead of using the pin flare for the topper, I'm using double-sided tape and some glue, because I want that to lay flat on my card, and I've decided to have the frame coming forwards rather than the topper, just for a bit of difference really. Bit too much glue, so I decided to spread it towards the middle with a pin. And that is my second card done. As you can see, I have lots left over still. It does say this kit will make a minimum of 2 cards, but obviously you can get a lot more out of this kit. So as I said at the beginning, I'm trying to make as many cards as possible out of this one set, which is the 2 backing sheets and the topper sheet. I'm using a slice off one of the backing sheets because the image is too lovely not to use on its own really. Again, I'm just sticking it down with double-sided tape and glue. I'm using a DL card because it's the perfect size for that image. It doesn't go right to the edge, but I'm going to fill that in with some other scraps. I believe that this scrap is off the very first card where I cut the backing sheet, so that's still going strong. And then this tiny sliver beside me, I've actually cut that down to just the silver strip. I do have a little bit of a choice about where I'm going to put it exactly, but I get there in the end. And I don't have any double-sided tape that thin, so I'm just using the glue. And yes, I smear it with my finger and it ends up all over the desk, but not to worry. And finally I need to add my sentiment. I'm just rubbing a bit of the glue off the silver mirror stock there, because otherwise that's the only trouble with glue, it gives you a bit of a weird finish to anything shiny obviously. I'm going to use 3D foam pads, which I'm just trimming down. I'm using the big ones but just cutting it down to size. I don't know why I went for foam pads, again adding a bit of glue so I can wiggle it around if I need to. And that is card number 3 finished. This is card number 4 and it's going to be the final card on this video. There will be part 2 with 3 further cards on. I'm using a 5x5 scalloped edge card, and I'm using the other backing sheet and I've trimmed the border off that. Now I'm just cutting this piece down to the right size and I'm using my crafty army pencil. I'm cutting that down so you can still see the scalloped border around the edge of the card, but I am going to take the side edge, so the spine, over the card. Sometimes I do that with backing sheets, it just makes it easier and neater. And then I'm rounding the corners with my very dodgy, very broken corner punch, but it still punches corners, so that's what I need to worry about. And then I'm going to score with my scoring blade and my woodware trimmer, so that I know that that card front is going to line up exactly with the crease on the card. And I'm going to stick it down with tape and glue. So I'm just using my bone folder just to give that a nice sharp crease, and as you can see, I was talking earlier about the scalloped edge appearing around the border of the front card, and I'm not going to stick the front to the card, I'm going to leave that loose, so it'll literally just be stuck along the spine and the back side. I'm using my glue spreader instead of a pin. I actually found out where it was. Yeah, so I'm just sticking that back down to the back of the card, but the front will still come away from the front of the card. I just thought it was a bit different. It didn't really need to be stuck down. It gives it a bit more freedom to move as well. Now, I did play around with some die cut toppers, the frames from that same topper set, but I tried to make a focal point, but it wasn't going to work, so I just decided to go with the sentiment, and I'm using a foam pad and glue for that. And that's finished. Really simple, quick card.